Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the top 10 gun movies of all time.
I'd hit that.
You couldn't hit the G-spot on a 12-pound bazooka.
So before we get to our top 5, I wanted to go over a few honorable mentions, because top 10, frankly, for gun movies just isn't quite enough. So here we go with 2 of our honorable mentions. New Country for Old Men. Starring Tommy Lee Jones, Josh Brolin, and Kamala Harris, Josh Brolin wins the Showcase Showdown versus the Mexican Cartel just to have the Angel of Death descend upon him like Monica Lewinsky, but not in a fun way. John Wick 3. Do all John Wick movies belong in the top 10? Yeah, but you know what? Go fuck yourself. I needed a break. In this third installment of the John Wick series, Keanu Reeves proves that, he can kill people. And Hollywood proves that Catwoman can finally fight, but still sucks at acting. Number 5, Dirty Harry. This 1971 classic, starring a double-action Smith & Wesson Model 29 revolver in .44 Magnum, and also, kind of co-starring Clint Eastwood, was one of the primary movies to put guns on the map. Truth be told, anyone other than Clint Eastwood would be overcompensating for something and shooting this gun. So, overall, get off my lawn, let's review this movie and see what made it great.
Get off my lawn.
Now, normally, I'm not a huge fan of exposition in movies, but goddamn, this movie is the single most important piece of gun exposition ever done.
Being this is a .44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off, you've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky?
So this gun is on the list for no reason other than that gun. It was 1971. They didn't really talk about guns in movies per se. They just kind of had them in it. And this was the first one to put guns in movies on the map. So as part of our criteria being cultural relevance, this may in fact be number 1 of all time. In this case, what he was shooting, as we're all fairly aware, is the Smith & Wesson Model 29 double-action revolver .44 Magnum. And as Dirty Harry points out, at the time, it was the most powerful handgun in the world.
Being this is a .44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world.
Now, with that, at that time, there was very little of the Smith & Wesson Model 29s out there for sale. But as soon as this movie happened, it really took off. And ever since, it's been in the Smith & Wesson lineup. Both the Model 29 and the 629 stainless steel model as well have been a constant part of the Smith & Wesson lineup for gun sales. In fact, with this gun, originally they planned on going with the 4-inch nickel barrel, and it ended up, because of scarcity, being the 6.5-inch blued barrel with the gun, which in my estimation, having that long obnoxious barrel kind of helped the movie out quite a bit and made it a tad more popular. So with that, I would like to say my number 5, due to cultural relevance more so than anything else, is Dirty Harry. Number 4, Extraction. This 2020 film stars Fat Thor, who switches from beer to vodka, loses some weight, and seeks further redemption by saving the child from Slumdog Millionaire before starting a spin-off series of Perfect Strangers reboot. Now, why I suggest none of you actually watch this movie, because it came out before Netflix decided to flaunt 11-year-old girls out on stage and show them in a pornographic manner, aka cuties. This is one of the best gunplay movies I have ever seen. The realism, the approach to it, the story is even great. The story of redemption for Chris Hemsworth, and I believe his character's name is Tyler Rake in this movie, is truly a wonderful film. And with that, the realism of the guns, in my opinion, was very pleasing to watch. There are so many guns in this movie. Oh, and by the way, of course, we have the good old HK MP5, in this case, the SD. So everybody loves the HK MP5 submachine gun in every damn movie. And of course, it's in this one. But some of the primary guns utilized in this movie, Chris Hemsworth character uses a Glock 17, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. Glocks in general, very popular brand of handgun. And the parts that I like, being an AR builder myself, they used a Bravo company, the CQB-11. It had an EOTech with a magnifier on it, just like my guns in the back do. He also used a Daniel Defense M4A1 in the movie. Things that, for us who plan on, SHTF and WROL happening and things really falling apart, they're the type of firearms that we would like to have in our own collection to protect ourselves. So overall, and also the female character in the movie, I forget her name. I believe the character's name was, or maybe it's the actress, I'm not sure, Nick Khan? Not exactly sure. However, she was using a Scar H. So while the people in the Deadpool movie that I described earlier were using a Scar L, which is a 5.56, this is a Scar H that is a 7.62. So it's a little bit more of a long-range weapon, and that's the way she utilizes it. She's not getting so much up in front in the battle, and when it does come to her, she has to use it in a little bit more of a unique way, where it's not just battle rifle. It's like shooting a sniper rifle from up close. So I do appreciate the gunplay in this movie. I appreciate the message. Overall, it was top to bottom, non-stop, super entertaining, and a very fulfilling film.
Kid, you trust me?
No.
Good.
Number 3, Heat. Back when Robert De Niro used to be cool, Val Kilmer was skinny, and Al Pacino actually had his sight, this 1995 film truly brought the heat. How hot, you say? Hot enough to roast a marshmallow on Tom Sizemore's crack pipe. Number 3 being Heat. There is a whole lot to this movie. Number 1, it is a great movie. So using the criteria that we had, this film is fantastic. Top to bottom. Great cast. Back when I used to like Robert De Niro and I thought he was pretty damn cool up until the past, 3-4 years, so to say. What really made it cool is I think, from what I understand, they had 2 British SAS op trainers. You can see, particularly in Val Kilmer's character, his gunplay, reloading, and everything seems to be rather spot on. And I think this is the beginning of realizing that true training need to be had for these actors to really pull off these gunfights. So in that gunfight, the things that I also like, albeit back in 1995, without all the gadgets and fun stuff that we have today to add to our ARs, they used what would be some of your standard ARs. Robert De Niro's character, Neil, in the movie, has a Colt Model 6.54 chambered in 5.56. Again, this was 1995 with not all the bells and whistles and the unique builds that we can do with ARs, so that was a pretty standard operating procedure gun in that case. Val Kilmer's character also had a Colt. He had the Model 733, also chambered in 5.56. What I found unique in this movie was that the bad guys, their guns, it's tough to notice, but you notice their guns are full auto. The good guys have the semi-auto guns. Meaning that it doesn't matter. For those of you that are new to guns and you think that somehow if we get rid of guns, the bad guys aren't going to get them. No, they're still going to get them. Full auto is illegal, but in this movie, they have the full auto guns and the good guys do not. I found that to be a really cool thing in the movie that added a little bit of uniqueness to it as well. Now, Al Pacino's character was carrying an FNC 80, which is typically not what you have for law enforcement, specifically in LAPD at that time. So that made it a bit unique, but they were chambered in 5.56. Now, there's a scene where he is about to shoot Tom Sizemore with a hostage. And when you look at it, understand the camera adds a little bit of length to it, so it's probably about 20 yards away. But he goes for it, takes the shot, depends on how he zeroed his rifle, and got him right in the head. So that is one of those situations and things that you may have ran through your mind yourself, wondering at what point do I pull the trigger to save a life that's being held hostage, or I just not shoot at all. So I found all those little idiosyncrasies very unique. There's so many handguns in this movie, it would be impossible to go through it. And of course, just like all the other movies, I'm sure there's an H&K MP5 submachine gun somewhere in there. And finally, one of the cool things that Michael Mann does in a lot of his different gun movies, he's the director of this film, is the 21 or Mozambique drills, which is 2 in the chest, 1 in the head. So for those of us that play basketball, it's like shooting free throws and getting warmed up. That is what that drill is when you go to the range. It's called the 21 drill or the Mozambique. 2 in the A zone on the chest, 1 on the head. So if you want to practice shooting, practice that just like the film shows, but I appreciated that they showed that as part of the film. For my number 3, Heat. Number 2, John Wick 1. This 2014 film shows what anybody would do if someone shot their dog and stole their Mustang, except this person happens to be a highly trained assassin. The movie that started it all proves that Keanu Reeves does in fact know gun flu. I really hated this movie. Every second of this movie, I couldn't stand it. The guns were just disgusting. There's nothing about them I liked. In fact, I would never buy one ever. So, with that said, when this movie came out, I was in shock. It wasn't just fun gunplay, it was gun foo. Which is completely new in the movie genre and actually seems rather realistic. And Keanu Reeves' training was substantially good. I mean, I don't know what this guy does. Every movie he goes into, he trains like an animal. At this point, the guy knows every form of martial arts from The Matrix, is in super shape, and can handle a gun better than anybody else. He did train with Taran Tactical and Taran Butler at Taran Tactical for this film. I believe for both films he did training. The primary guns that are expressed within this movie, when he breaks the concrete in the floor and he opens it up when he's finally back, he has within there a HK P30L with a compensator. This is the exact gun that is in that movie. And again, here, just to make everybody feel safe, we know that it's empty, okay? This gun, and shooting it myself, is insanely accurate. In fact, I've never shot it without the compensator. I bought the compensator when I bought the pistol, so I don't know how accurate the handgun itself is, but this entire package is absurdly accurate and has now overtaken my Ruger American 45 ACP as my everyday carry. Now, it is a little bit difficult to carry with a compensator, but I'm a big guy and I made it work. The other primary guns when he breaks the concrete there would be, I believe it's a Glock 26 that he has. I know the henchmen are using Glock 17s. Of course, as every other film, some of the henchmen have the H&K MP5 of some sort, and they got that tiny submachine gun. And with that, he also, as his AR build at one point in the movie, was a Cohair Arms CA415, which is an Americanized, bastardized version of the HK416. It has an EOTech 553 on it, so, I mean, just like I have here. And the shotgun in the movie, it's a little bit different than this. All it has, I believe, is iron sights. May not even have a holographic or a red dot on it, but it is this gun that... which, if you're doing 2 3/4 shells, holds 14 plus 1. This is when he gets to the main bad guy, takes down his crew, blows a shot in the main window, and points it at him saying, "Make sure you give up your son."
Cool it, cool it, cool it, cool it, cool it.
So this gun in and of itself is a really fun gun. Kel-Tec is really hit or miss, but this was a hit. No jams. I've used many shells through it. It is so much fun. And yeah, you know what? It's okay to buy a gun that's in a movie. I think it's pretty damn cool because then I can use it and express to people, just like I am right now, of how awesome it truly is. And they're not going to put it in the movie if it's not something that they plan on, advertising to begin with, and it has to have some kind of relevance to it. So those of us, like ourselves, who watch these gun movies will point it out and say, "I know what that gun is." Now, John Wick 1, to me, frankly, it's almost comparing John Wick 1 and John Wick 2. It's like comparing A New Hope to Empire Strikes Back with Star Wars. I'm technically a bigger fan of A New Hope, but Empire Strikes Back's a better movie, right? It has more to it. So it's tough. They're almost 1 and 1A for me, but with that being said, number 2 is John Wick 1, and here it comes number 1. Number 1, John Wick 2. Never bring a knife to a gunfight unless you're John Wick and you can just bring a pencil. Keanu Reeves continues his killing spree in John Wick 2 and seeks advice from his old friend Morpheus, just to realize he's raising pigeons and smoking crack instead. John Wick continues to pile up more bodies than Thanos, just for Thanos' sake. I hope when he snapped, he didn't kill his dog. All right, I had a really tough time putting this one in front of John Wick 1. I like the originals that start it all off and get it moving great. Also, part of my problem with this one is when we started getting a little too customized with our Terran tactical gear. I like it where I can just point out the gun, know it's somewhere online, I can go buy it, as opposed to some specialized custom weapon. I make the customized special weapons myself. I prefer to do that. I like to know a product and a name and apply it to what the history of the gun is.
Break yourself, fool!
That being said, this movie's nuts. I mean, top to bottom, it took everything that we loved from John Wick 1 in terms of the action and amped it up pretty significantly. John Wick 1 had a better story. I like it more, just like Star Wars A New Hope was a little bit slower and it came together to bring the whole story up to a high level. But John Wick 2, just like Empire Strikes Back, catapulted that and did a little bit more to make it a little bit more intense. Outside of the guns, I really liked the world building in the movie and taking us outside of just the realm of a single assassin for a Russian mobster to a world of assassins that we kind of knew was creeping in there in the background in the first one, but we really didn't know what it meant. And it still didn't give us too much and gave us just enough to make it more interesting. So world building for me in movies is pretty significant. And the coolest part is the world building in this movie is gun related. It is almost it's strictly associated with guns and violence and assassins, which makes it even cooler moving forward. So needless to say, the pretty interesting scene that comes up in this movie where there's the most gun aspects is when he's preparing to enter that party. God, I forget what they call the guy who's giving him all the guns. The sommelier, I believe, the tall guy with the giant, pen in there. So when he's going through everything, he doesn't mention Glock exactly. These are the ones that are Terran Tactical pimped out Glocks. This is the Austrian model. He had a Glock 36 and a Glock 26, I believe, are the ones that he utilized. And those were his handguns that he utilized during those scenes. He also took the Benelli M4 Super 90 shotgun, which I've shot that gun once, and it was just amazing. That's the shotgun that he carries into the sewers when he's leaving. So a higher-end shotgun in the first film being the Kel-Tec KSG-12. What other guns did he have in this? I believe it was also, I think, a pimped-out Terran Tactical one. That was his AR that he uses in that scene. It was a TR1 built mostly of Bravo Company parts. It had a compensator on it. They said it was an 11.5-inch barrel, which would make sense with a CQB type of stance where he's running around in sewers and you want a shorter barrel. But from what I understand, that barrel was actually 14.5 inches on the gun that was actually utilized in the movie. But it makes sense that when they're describing it being 11.5 inches would make tactical sense. If you're moving around in a sewer and trying to get between tight quarters, well then yeah, a shorter barrel is going to work a little bit better. Shotgun's going to be pretty devastating in that too, though the Benelli M4 Super 90 has a pretty long barrel associated with it. So with that, also the dessert.
Dessert. The finest cutlery.
I believe he had the Microtech Ultratech Combat Trodoon, I believe. Something similar to this, so I have my own little one. This is my bench-made Infidel. Nothing better than a switchblade to have at the handy. Love this thing. You could just sit there for hours and just go like this, just entertain yourself. But this purchase was, although it's not exactly the same knife as John Wick 2, this was inspired by that scene where he's choosing dessert. So knives are a huge portion of your defense. When people get close to you, you need to be able to have something that's not just a gun, but something that's a little bit more close combat. So the fact that they addressed that in the movie, I really did appreciate. The Kimber 1911 that is given to him via crackhead Morpheus with 7 rounds for all 7 million that it cost him was interesting. I mean, 1911s, you're either a huge fan or you're not. So I found that rather interesting. It ran out of ammo really quick, and when he ransacked some of the guns from the bad guys in that scene, I think he was shooting a Glock 17. So they stayed relatively sound in it, but the gunfighting in general and then the world building was really unique. And again, this is my almost 1A. I'm not sure whether to put John Wick 1 or John Wick 2, number 1 or number 2. But in this case, just because of the overall function and focus on nothing but guns, and given this is a top 10 gun video, I think that John Wick 2 is our crowned victor of the number 1 gun movie of all time. Thank you for watching Username. Please like, share, and subscribe to the station for all the latest episodes of our core Username content, the latest on Second Amendment and fun with firearms with Guns and Blammo, pop culture with Hollyweird, and up-to-date news with anonymous sources. Be sure to catch our Pravda Media parody show extraordinaire, Haywire News. Visit our Teespring account for all of the newest and latest fun attire. I look forward to talking to you soon, and have a great day.